You know, we focused a lot on the city of Portland this week. I pointed out so that you know that we know that you know that we're doing it. We do try to move our emphasis on big stories around Southwest Washington and other parts of Oregon, but recently some of the biggest stories on some of the biggest problems have been right here, where most of the people live, in Portland. Now, earlier this week, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek gathered a task force of 40 people to focus on the problems of downtown Portland. Their mission is to find solutions for the problems and then take action quickly. One of the very first actions they took, well, they excluded reporters from their meetings so that they could talk freely, they said. Okay. We could not get in, but we did get the PowerPoint slides that laid out the data that they saw showing Portland's problems. The information comes from Michael Wilkerson at the company Echo Northwest. And because you are the smartest viewers of news on this planet, we're going to share a bunch of the data with you right now. First, here's the area we're talking about, Portland's Central City. It stretches from the north at Lower Albina to the south waterfront and from Goose Hollow in the west to the entire central east side. The first thing to know is that the population growth for Portland was starting to fall actually before the pandemic hit. The high point was 2016. You can see that there on the graph, but by 2021 it had moved into the negative, and then last year it fell further with people moving out. Now the red part of the graph here shows you the difference between the number of births and deaths. It's getting so small that there's almost no positive gain there from the people who live here currently. That makes the blue part that much more important. That's net migration. It's the number who move in versus the number who move out, and it's what drives the future in a city like ours. And here you see it's in the tank. Now you might say, well, that same thing is going on with a lot of cities. Okay, let's take a look. Here's Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue. First, notice the red. They have more births than deaths, so the area is growing even just with the people who are already there. And yes, it had a high point in 2016 and then began that downward slide and went negative in 2021. But last year, it started to bounce back. Portland did not. Salt Lake City had a similar drop to Portland, but still had strong growth among the people already there. And there's the red part of the graph. Other cities similar in size to Portland did much better. They include Austin, Indianapolis, and Nashville. When looking at just population loss from 2020 to 2021, Portland tied for being in the top 5 amongst losers in the nation. Top 5, not a place you want to be. And you've probably heard about the amount of income that leaves when people are moving out of Multnomah County. Well, this graph helps spell that out. It's more than $1 billion. And I thought it was really interesting. If you look at the left at the red boxes from 2012 through 2020, people moving to Multnomah County from other states brought in millions worth of income with them. In 2020, the amount was $230 million brought into the county. But then in 2021, the trend reverses. There's nothing above the zero line. It was all money leaving the county, and that is also a huge problem for the future. And one last graph to show you, it's the gap between the income of people leaving and the people arriving in Multnomah County. That middle gold line is people leaving. The light colored line below it is people arriving. Back in 2015, 16, and 17, the income of the folks coming and going pretty much about the same. But then by 2018, it began to change, with higher earners replaced by lower income earners. The folks leaving in 2021 were making on average about $85,000. And finally, take a look at this data from Ernst & Young showing Portland has the second highest marginal income tax rate in the nation for people or couples making over $150,000. New York City technically is number 1, but their top rates don't kick in until people are making like $25 million. So I guess, you know, for practical purposes, that makes us number 1. Yay! You don't want to be number 1. It's another reason that people are moving out if they make a decent amount of money. Okay, that is a lot of data basically hammering home the point that people who make good incomes started leaving Portland and Multnomah County a while ago, and then it really turbocharged in 2021. Not sure about last year, but I'm willing to bet the trend continued. Ready for a little bit more data? We've covered demographics and finances. Now let's move to safety. One of the big issues with downtown coming back is crime. Here's a look at crime in a variety of neighborhoods most covered by the task force. The blue bars show the crime in the month for July of 2023, and then to the left of that, the white bar is for that same month in 2022. Check it out. every neighborhood here shows a slight drop in crime from last year to this year, except for downtown. Crime in downtown is not getting better. And neither are overdoses. The number of calls have doubled since last January. The graph there on the left shows how much overdoses are up in various areas of the city. So yes, the data still shows that it's still a mess in parts of Central City. To summarize, high taxes, lots of overdoses, and crime, especially in downtown, means lots of people who can leave, do leave. We'll be watching to see how the governor's task force turns all that around. Now, let's dive into your thoughts about the governor's task force to save Portland. I gave you my opinion on Tuesday. I really do hope things get better, but I gotta say, I'm skeptical. To me, it feels like more committees, meetings, and a lot of talking with not much action. Many of you agreed.
I'm so tired of plan, meet, assess. Evaluate, and nothing gets done. It is so sad and so maddening.
Yep, a lot of people feel that way. Mark wrote to us to say, while having the governor start a task force is a positive sign, sadly, it is simply too large and made up with the same ineffective and incompetent people leadership that has a history of not being able to get anything done.
The governor's task force reminds me of an old saying, a camel is a racehorse designed by a committee.
I gotta say, I love that saying. Molly wrote something to us that our team here at The Story kind of says to each other quite a bit, actually. She wrote, it seems sometimes like everyone is so worried that they will get voted out of office if they make a mistake or squander some public funds that they become paralyzed and so cautious that they study it to death. Squander away. At least you stepped up to the plate and tried something. Well, many of you agreed with my thoughts on the task force. Sadly, not everyone did.
I don't appreciate the cynicism shown by Pat. Frankly, I think it's good that the leaders in the state are getting together. There's a ton of money in this state, and if the leaders get together and decide that Portland is actually a priority, then perhaps they can fix some of these issues. People representing people to get together to make things better for people. I think that's what we want in this community. Not a bunch of cynicism, criticizing, but not doing anything to fix it yourself. I hope things will get better.
Me too, David. Thanks for your comment. All comments are welcome. Dixie told us, I think it's great the governor is getting involved. She seems to be the type to say, you have this long to talk, but after that, I want a solid plan of action.
Governor Kotex. Hell, I didn't know I'd ever say this, but I'm kind of impressed with her lately. She realizes that Portland is part of the state of Oregon. For all the years Kate Brown, Portland, Oregon didn't exist, like it wasn't on the state map. Didn't bother with anything.
Thanks to all who did comment. If you've not sent us your thoughts on the task force, you can do it right now. And for those of you who responded earlier this week, what do you think now when you see all the data that came out with this? Are you surprised? Not surprised? Send us an email, will you? Our address is thestory@kgw.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090.